1, 2, 3. Harold and Brad. Windy City Filmmakers. Harold and Brad. Windy City Filmmakers. Harold and Brad. Da, 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 da. Three, two, one. What's going on, y'all? Brad Stevens here for another edition of the Harold and Brad Windy City Filmmakers Podcast. HD, what's going on, brother?
What's up, B? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Nothing much. We're a very special guest, a good friend, Yasmin. Abidi's in the house. What's going on?
What's going on, Bradley? I haven't seen you in, 15 years or something crazy like that?
Something like that. It's been a minute. Wow. Right.
It's been a minute and a half.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So the first question we always ask people is a two-parter, and it's what's your connection to Chicago, and what kind of art do you create?
Well, you know my connection to Chi-Town. I mean, I moved to Chicago. It was 5 days before the Twin Towers came down, and I remember that incredibly well because it pretty much changed my whole life. Mm-hmm. I remember that was September 11th of 2001.
Right.
So 5 days before that, I moved to Chicago to start my first year of my MFA program at the theater school at DePaul University. And 5 days into classes and got evacuated. I was like, okay, then.
Wow.
Here we go.
We all remember where we were at that time.
No doubt. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was, I can't even, I mean, I still to this day remember exactly how it all went down.
Right.
And exactly what I wrote in my journal that day after, and how I think I cried every single day for like every other day past that when I was like through school because it was just so hard, you know?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it's tripped out because I remember that day as well. I remember, and I was hopping on the train. Like it happened before I was heading out, going to the theater school.
Yeah.
And I was on the train. I was like, man, it's just a weird feeling on the CTA.
God. We didn't even know what was going on.
Right.
So we were standing outside the building and everyone was kind of like, what? And then I remember somebody talking about, well, don't get on the L train because like they're talking about putting bombs on the L train and don't do this and don't do that. And I was like, holy smokes, how am I going to get home?
Right.
So my classmate, Derek Cole, remember Derek?
Oh yeah, Derek, yeah.
DC,
yeah.
Derek, he basically was like, well, I drove here today. So a bunch of us from class piled into his car. And we ended up at his apartment, which actually he lived across the street from me. Like we were on Sheridan, I think it was Sheridan Rodeo across from Lake Michigan there.
Okay.
So across from the beach. So I was across the road from him. My building was across the road from his. So basically, we all ended up in his apartment and then he turned on the TV and then we were like, oh my God. And that's basically when we found out visually we could see why we were sent home.
You know what's tripped out also real quick is just telling that story, how much things changed between then and now having a cell phone. Because I did not get my first cell phone until I graduated from DePaul. Like if like, heaven forbid a situation like that would happen now, you would just know about it so much quicker because everybody has access to cell phones. And that was just just that time period.
I know what you mean because I didn't have one either. Like I had literally, it was 5 days into I'd moved there. I was just getting situated, So it wasn't until in the middle of that year that I finally got set up with Verizon, I think it was. But I never owned a phone. So you're absolutely right. Right. How we receive news today is so different from how it was back then.
So tell us your art. What do you do now? What do you specialize in?
So right now, like I've been here I live in North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, which is Pacific Coast, basically 3 hours north of Seattle by car. I have been working in the Vancouver film television industry since I got here.
Okay.
A little bit of theater, not so much. I really miss theater because it's not a big theater town here. And that's one of the reasons why I love Chicago so much. For all those like awesome little black box spaces, and you could just go in and have such close proximity to the audience, and you could feel all that energy being like moved around in the room between everyone.
Yes.
I miss it so very much. But mostly I've been like doing film, television sort of, and but last year was a write-off because like everything kind of shut down. It's back up now, but still with all the COVID protocols and everything, you know what I mean? There's so many different restrictions now. So like last year I booked a role on a MOW, and that was all I shot. And I mostly like just stayed, I stayed in for a long time. Like I was following the, what's her name? Provincial health officers, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Her sort of rules and regulations. So it was all about staying in, staying home, staying safe, and those first 3 months, I lost all of my jobs. I'm a contract worker, right? So I have an animal care business on the side that's based on people going away and traveling. And of course, everybody canceled their trips, right?
Okay.
Nobody's going anywhere. And then I work for the city of New Westminster, which is a city about an hour out of here. And I work for them and do large scale events, 1,500 people, 700 people indoors. It's like, that was a big no-no. So that job has been out of question. Like I haven't done that. I maybe had 8 to 10 hours of work last year with it, working there. So it's still shut down, right? Because we're not allowed to do any kind of inside event that's that big. And then the film industry shut down for a bit, right? So I was like, okay, what do I do? And I ended up for the first little while connecting with as many of my clients as possible. A lot of them are senior clients with compromised immune systems. And so I thought, well, I can help them out by volunteering to like grocery shop for them or something that they would be afraid to do because of the pandemic and because of their health. So I did a lot of that. And oddly enough, what I've been working on during this, primarily since April 30th, is a documentary film that I'm going to be making. It's my first time venturing onto that end of the camera, and I actually don't even own a camera. Like I've been doing everything with my cell phone camera.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Kind of crazy, but I'm doing it. And it's because on April 30th, I actually found an owl that was injured in the middle of the day. Normally you don't see owls in the middle of the day on the side of a busy street in a park. And there was blood running down the tree trunk. He was slowly dying. He was being attacked by crows. And I was like, people had gathered. And so there was a few of us that like stood around this trunk for like an hour until, we called for help, and help finally came. And anyway, long story short, discovered that this owl had been poisoned by rodenticides. Rodenticides are poisons that are put into these little black bait boxes that you might see outside establishments like food establishments, restaurants, grocery stores, private residences, to keep rodents away from the buildings.
Right.
And inside these boxes are very, 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 very lethal poisons. But when a rodent goes in and ingests the poison, they don't die immediately. It takes 3 to 10 days for them to die. So in that time, all the other wild predators that feed on rodents are now becoming poisoned when we call it secondary poisoning, because as a result of eating these poisoned rodents. So anyway, it's a huge issue. Tons of owls have been dying, and it also has been affecting some of our other wildlife, like a bear, like a black bear here. We have bears up here. A black bear got into a bucket of it that a resident had left out a few months ago, and it's things like this. So it's become this whole thing about. I've been petitioning my province, my provincial government, to ban the substances and replace them with more humane options. And it's kind of taken off. My petition almost has 13,000 signatures in 7 months. I've been working with my local government, my municipal and provincial, to get this changed. And already my municipal government has made changes, and more municipal governments in other communities have made changes. So it's kind of a ripple effect that's been taking effect here, and it's been really kind of neat. And so I named the owl Lucky, and petitioning for Lucky's law to be implemented, and that's what I'm going to be making the documentary about my experience of what can happen when one person speaks up and makes a change for the better. And it also is for our own planet, for everybody on the planet. It's going to save our ecosystem, because right now we're destroying it by throwing poisons down, and not realizing the impact of how it's affecting other creatures that are living off of the animals that we're poisoning. That we're intending to poison, but not realizing we're poisoning everybody else. And in the States too, I know there's cases where kids have been poisoned by it as well.
How did Lucky come out of this?
So miraculously, when he was rescued, the volunteer rescuer said that she recognized the tag on his talon, on his little leg and above his talon, and that he had been rescued before by their organization. So when they took him in and they worked on him, and they found out that he'd been not only poisoned by rodenticides this time, but the 3 weeks prior to me finding him, he had also been in for the same poisoning.
So, goodness.
The fact that this owl survived 2 poisonings in 3 weeks is miraculous in itself. And also that the majority of people that do find owls that have been poisoned, they're usually finding them dead on the riverbeds. And I live in the woods. I'm surrounded by woods. I'm 2 blocks from a mountain. I'm in North Vancouver, where it's we are living on the land of these animals. We've built into their land. So, as it is, we've already taken away so much from them. And now it's can we not help out a little bit and just start putting down things that are not poisonous, that can do the same thing, and they exist now. Maybe they didn't exist decades ago, but they exist now. And since I started, diving into this, I've received messages from people all over the world that, about this very issue. And it's been incredible, because I've connected with so many activists around the world, especially in California. My gosh, the gal down there who's been fighting for 9 years, and finally they had a victory with their recent bill that they had proposed. It was actually voted on and passed in November about this issue to get rid of these substances. But I mean, my God, 9 years of fighting, and I'm just starting. And I was who knew? How many people do you think about these things or know about these things? Most people are just going along and walking around doing their day and not realizing that there's things around you and your environment that are really affecting the ecosystem and are poisoning our wildlife.
Absolutely.
And oddly enough, it's kind of working by putting these poisons down. It's working against what we want, which is to prevent rodent infestation. But by killing the rodents and poisoning by poison, and then offering them up to all of the other wildlife becomes poison and dies. Well, they're the ones that can take care of that situation first and foremost. An owl can eat 1,000 rodents in a year. 1,000. That's just one owl, right? Oh, so, by losing them to this poison, it's not helping the situation. So that's kind of what I've been into. And I hadn't planned on it at all. It was just I'm an animal activist. I've always been for animals. But I was like, somebody's got to say something. Like somebody's
Right.
got to say something in a way that people are going to notice more, because I think people have been working on this issue in the past and have been working on it and, you know, not really getting anywhere, or the issue been brought up to governments, but it's been put on the back burner because other things are more important. I'm like, well, you know what? This is time for COVID and everyone's focused on COVID, but I'm like, this is also a time where I think we can bring up an issue like this again and make it stick and make it matter and make a change, since people are making so many changes when it comes to COVID and how we do our lives.
Ooh la la. Yes.